I did, oops, ooh, good catch. Almost fell on the floor. Well, hello and welcome to Michelle's Fiber Studio podcast. My name is Michelle and I am your host. Today is Sunday, June 21st, I believe, and this is episode number 15. 15 feels kind of like a big number, even though it's a small number. It's kind of a milestone marker, I guess. So yeah, it is episode 15. If this is your first time watching, well, thank you so much for checking me out. And if you're a returning viewer, well, I thank you so very much for coming back. It is a gorgeous day out today, mid-70s. The heat and humidity have finally broken sometime middle of last week, and it has just been glorious Maine summer weather. So I have a lot to share again this week. I've got a finished object, half a finished object, and updates on the projects that I have been working on. But before I dive into that, let's talk about Marta. And today, Marta is wearing the Potter's Shawl by Jen Lucas. This is a project that I knit back in the summer of 2021. It took me until February 2022 to complete it. And the yarn is by Plymouth Yarn. It's Davila. I think that's how you say that. And the colorway is Oat. It is 100% worsted merino. And what's kind of fun about this one, this is yarn that I purchased back in April of 2019. My husband and I spent a few days in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and we checked out Plymouth Harbor Yarns, I think might be the name of the shop right there in Plymouth. And so this is yarn that I bought while I was down there. And then I held on to it for a couple of years. And then a couple of years later, we did a vacation in Williamsburg, and I brought this yarn with me and cast on, I either cast on right before or I cast on right when we arrived, I don't recall, but I cast on the Potter's Shawl. And it just feels like fun symmetry. I'm kind of a history buff, and so the fact that the yarn is Plymouth yarn that I bought in Plymouth, Massachusetts, that I cast on a project in Williamsburg, Virginia, and the name of the shawl is Potter's Shawl, whereas a potter was very common back in colonial history. Just, again, it's kind of that symmetry that I really get a little bit of a kick out of. So I knit this one again. It took me, I started it on vacation. Actually, this is the same vacation. I think a couple of weeks ago I had my Metamorphosis? Is that the name of the shawl? It was the purple one with lots of different colors in it. Papillon, that was the name of it. And that's the same trip that I had found that project and got the yarn for it, had them wind it up, and I like immediately cast it on while I was on vacation. So I think my Potter's Shawl, even though I started it initially while we were on vacation, got set aside, as I recall, and I shifted my focus to that other project. And that I kept that focus, which is why this one took me so long to complete. Kind of a fun little tidbit on this one, I don't remember how many balls I had gotten, but whatever I had gotten, I ran out with about 24 stitches left to bind off, and I was so annoyed. Fortunately, it's a yarn that I was able to order from Webs, and I ordered a ball of yarn in the same colorway, and it came in and I finished it dye-lot. I'm sure it wasn't the same, but I didn't really care for literally a bind off of 24 stitches. But yeah, that was so I still have nearly a full skein left beyond what I had purchased, and that was simply to bind off 24 stitches. So at any rate, I've got lots to share, so let's go ahead and get started. On my blocking board, I do have a finished object for you today. I was able to finish my Islands in the Stream. Look at this, isn't it gorgeous? I know it's not overly oversized, but it's definitely too big to get a really good view of in the camera, but I love it. Here, let me throw it on. I will probably do one of these. Get it up off my mouth. There we go. Something like this. I love the contrast of the blues and the gray, and oh yeah, that's gonna be a fun one to wear. I'm gonna have to play with it and make sure that it doesn't flip to the wrong side. So yeah, this is Islands in the Stream. The pattern is by Lisa K. Ross. This is yarn that I've had since February of 2017 by Dirty Water Dye Works. So let me pull that out. I still have a fair amount of yarn left. I'm gonna dump this out on my table in front of me there. Okay, let's pull, first of all, the tags one more time. So Dirty Water Dye Works. The gray is the March Sky. The yarn is called Lillian, and it's 100% superwash merino. And then the blues are a mini skein bundle called Moon Shadow, right? So, yeah, Moon Shadow. So this is what I have. The gray was a full ball. So that's what I have left of that. And then the blues, that's what I have left. So a fair amount. I think when I added it up, I have about 100 grams in these blues, and I have about 23 grams still left of the gray. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do, but I was thinking maybe of casting on a fun pair of socks. So I could do most of the socks in this blue, and then heels, cuffs, and toes. This would be perfect to do heels, cuffs, and toes. So maybe I'll go digging around on Ravelry and see if I can find a fun stripy sock pattern that will utilize these. So it's roughly not quite 20 grams. I think it was like between 17 and 19 grams of each color. The one, this darkest blue, I have the least, and that is because I used it the most. I threw an extra repeat in here with it. So that's what I ended up doing. This is a pattern that was written for 6 mini skeins, and so what I did is I did all 5 of them, and then I came back and did that darkest one again, which I really like the contrast with the grays on either side. I think that came out really good. That was also how I used in this section here. I striped all 5 colors, and instead of doing it would have been the 6th mini skein color that Lisa had designed would have been in here. So instead I did the 5 colors as a stripe, and then the 6th, it was 6 rows, so the 6th row or repeat, I just did an extra one in the gray, is how I compensated for that. So my stitch count never changed. I just kind of shifted around a little bit which color was which. So yeah, I'm really pleased. I finished blocking it, and I just literally, before I came on camera, wove in all the rest of the ends, trimmed them, and all of that. So this is going to be a really fun one in my wardrobe. Blues is one of my favorite colors, and so I'm happy to have something in that nice navy and slate and dark color. I think that's going to go really good with a lot of my winter wardrobe. So that is my finished object for this week and what I have on my blocking board. Let's jump right into my project bag, and I think I am gonna start with my half finished object, since it's not quite on the blocking board yet, but because it is a single sock. So this is the Sweet Georgia Tough Love sock. These are the socks that I started when I went to Iowa for Odyssey the Mind. Last week when I showed them, I was right here. So I got the whole rest of the foot done, and the toe, I went to my niece's track meet on Thursday and I brought it with me, and I got just about all of the rest of the foot done. I had like, I don't know, 4 rounds or something to do before the toe decreases, and then my husband and I went furniture shopping on Friday and drove down to Portland, so I brought it with me and I finished the toe actually while we were having dinner. So this one is done. I am hoping actually to do the second sock this week. This week is sock week that Nitty Natty puts on, and the goal is to knit an entire sock, just one sock, in a week. So I'm hoping to cast on the second one. It started this morning, or actually I think midnight today, and it goes through the end of next Sunday. So this week while we're camping, my goal is to knit the mate to this sock, and I'm pretty confident that I can get one sock. If I was able to knit a whole pair of socks while I was walking around New York City, I think I can manage one sock. What do you think? So here, let's talk about the yarn a little bit more. Ooh, my needles are all tangled in it. There we go. Set those aside. So here's my skein. Come on, focus. There we go. And the yarn, I got the tag here, is Sweet Georgia. Come on. There we go. Tough Love sock. And the colorway is Canary Island. And this is one that I got back, I don't think it's dated. It wouldn't be dated on the skein. I don't know why I looked there for it. And do I have it in my notes? I do not have it in my notes, but I remember for sure that this is one that I got probably in the spring of 2020 when my local yarn store was going out of business. This was another one that I had grabbed from her. So it's been one that I've had for a little while. I gotta say, I'm not really liking the yarn. The yarn is nice. It's a thicker yarn. So these are thicker and heavier than most of the socks that I have knit, which I suppose on those deep, deep cold days, we'll see, I guess, how it wears and how I feel wearing it. But it is a thicker sock, so I'm not sure how I feel about that. I guess let's leave it at that. I won't say it's bad, I won't say it's good. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but it is definitely thicker. And actually in looking at it, again, hold it up, you can see it's a bit of a thicker gauge yarn or thicker weight yarn slightly. So it's a closer to a sport weight than in many ways I think that it is a fingering. Does it have a number? Actually, now that I mention it does, it's called sock. So I guess I would have assumed that it was fingering weight. It doesn't say. This one doesn't have a number, you know, the numbers that are often on a skein. But it does say 7.5 to 8 stitches per inch on sizes 0 to 1. So I think they're thinking that it's a fingering. That would be my interpretation of that. It is 80% superwash merino and 20% nylon. So it's definitely intended to be a sock yarn and to wear like a sock yarn. But yeah, so. And again, I'm not sure how I feel about the colors either. That green is really, they're kind of bright. But in the dead of winter, they're probably actually going to be very fun to wear. What I'm going to do with the rest of the skein after I knit the second sock, I really don't know. Yeah, I don't know, we'll see. So that is my sock. So let's tuck that away. I think next I am going to pull up my Ameyo. Didn't quite finish it. I came close, but I decided to focus my attention towards the end of the week on my islands in the stream. And I'm still trying to be careful how much knitting I do because my elbow is still kind of bothering me, or my forearm. So, but let me hold it up. This one's getting really big. There. So that's the whole thing there. I am working on the border. Pull that in nice and close. And I have, I think, 10 more rows in the border. So this will be my next focus. Definitely is coming camping with me this week, and I am pretty confident this one will be done this week as well. So yeah, again, the yarn is Hope Knit Yarns. There's my fingering weight yarn and my mohair. Yes, I had to finally get into those second skeins, but I'm gonna have a bunch of this left over too. So not sure what we'll do with it, but that will come. It will tell me what it needs to be. My yarn definitely has a penchant for doing that. So I did, a couple weeks ago, I had a issue where I ended up having to drop some stitches, and I did post the video on that last Thursday. So if you're interested in, I don't want to say seeing how I did that correction, because a lot of times I pulled that out of the camera view. But I've had some good feedback on it. Thank you to those of you who have watched it and who have let me know that it was helpful, even if you couldn't see exactly what I was doing all the time. And as somebody pointed out to me, it's nice to know that things don't always go as planned and that fixing things isn't always smooth. So thank you to the individual who left me that comment. I appreciate that. So that is my Ameyo, and that's well on its way to completion. So the last project that I am going to talk about is barely a project at all. This is what I've got. It is my, there we go, hold it up, look. My Longline Cardigan by Locatelli. And this yarn, it's a provisional cast on, so this whitish yarn on the bottom is the provisional cast on, and then I literally have just picked up the stitches. This is going to be the collar. It is a cardigan that is worked from the top down. And the yarn that I'm using is Bamboo by Regia, or Bamboo Blend, I should say. It is 45% wool, 30% bamboo, and 25% polyamide, right? Is that what I got? Yeah, wool, bamboo, and nylon. So I don't know if you can, how much of that you can see on that label, but. And then is there a color name, or is it just a color number? Yeah, it's just a color number. Color number 93, in case you're wondering, which is a gray. I have 3 balls of this. This is a fingering. Now look, here's something for you. This is definitely a fingering. Look at this fingering. Okay, see that there? And then here's my sock yarn. See the difference? Isn't that interesting how different yarns can be labeled something and then the weight is actually quite a bit different. So this is a really thin fingering. I did end up doing a second gauge swatch. Do I have it in here? I do. I mean, it's gonna look the same. Actually, this is my first one. Yeah, here's my second one. So this is the first gauge swatch that I did. And then I did, oops, ooh, good catch. Almost fell on the floor. There we go. So it's a little bit, it is a smaller gauge swatch. I just basically wanted to get a kind of a sense of the fabric that it would create. And I decided to, it's definitely smaller. I decided to go with the 1s. This was done on 2s. This is done on 1s. So I decided to go with the 1s. It actually is giving me a gauge that is pretty much spot on with the pattern, which is 24 stitches to the inch. I'm a little nervous, okay, more than a little nervous, that I might run out of yarn. But I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm gonna live dangerously. It is a long, it's knit from the top down. It's a long cardigan. It does go down below the waist. And it also, it's long sleeves, and the sleeves are long. I think the sleeves are 21 inches long, I wanna say. And I do not like, well, first of all, I don't like my sleeves to come all the way down to here. I tend to do just shy of, so it's not 3/4. I do a little longer than a 3/4, but I really like them more like, oops, there we go, more like about here, which is about 16 inches. So that's about that's 5 inches. So that's 10 inches of sleeve knitting that I won't be doing. And I don't think I want to make it quite, or it doesn't have to be, let's put it that way. I will take it as long as it will be. It's not going to be cropped, but I'm just not sure how long it's going to be. So I'm hoping that it will be long enough. Yeah, we're going to see. I'm just going to start it and I'm going to go from there. I figure I will knit it most of the way down in the body. I'll start the sleeves and I will knit the sleeves. I'll kind of gauge where I'm at. I'll knit the sleeves close to where I want them to be. If I need to steal a little bit from the sleeves and make them more like 3/4 length sleeves, I could. I wouldn't be completely opposed to that. I think I would rather have 3/4 length sleeves and a little bit longer if it's going to feel like it's going to be not long enough. But I'm hopeful that I can squeeze. I'm about 300 yards, technically 300 yards short for whatever amount of yardage that it calls for. So that is the Longline cardigan that I am definitely bringing camping with me. I have my other shawl that I am going to bring and start this week as well, so I'll have that one to talk about with you next week. And yeah, let's go on from there. This week's random knitting fact has to do with knitting in general. Of course they all do, that was kind of silly, but kind of the ebb and flow of knitting popularity, shall we? So changes in fashion in the late 1980s and early 1990s, as well as the huge influx of cheap imported knitwear, led to decreased interest in knitting. That would be in the 80s and 90s. And the cost of buying yarn compared unfavorably to buying ready-made clothes, which I thought was kind of interesting. And I know that that popularity has kind of swung the other direction and I think there's been a shift in mindset as to why people might knit. So back before the 80s, when people were knitting, they were knitting literally to make clothing that they needed to wear. Whereas, again, with the cheap imported knitwear, that didn't seem to be as necessary when somebody could just go and buy a sweater. And so the cost and effort of knitting a sweater didn't seem to be worth that, as opposed to just buying the sweater. I think now when people knit any kind of a garment, or anything for that matter, it is more about the experience and about knitting something that is fits you exactly the way you want it to fit, knitting a piece that is unique. So it has less to do with knitting for functional sake or for out of pure need, so much as knitting because that is what you desire. The other little fact that I found kind of went along with that, said that while knitting has gone in and out of fashion for the last 200 years, the early 21st century has seen new interest in knitting with an influx of new fibers, with yarns made from bamboo, soy, hemp, alpaca, camel, microfiber, and more. And in addition, there are hand-painted and hand-dyed yarns, pure cashmere, and other exotic blends. And there are also beautiful needles made from bamboo, rosewood, and ebony. So again, that speaks to doing something that is a little more couture. There's a word for something that is very unique and made just for you. And I cannot remember the word off the top of my head right now. But at any rate, thought that was kind of interesting. That has come from Fact Retriever is where I got this fact. So that is my fact for the day. Let's talk a little bit about my week and kind of what's gone on in my day-to-day section here. On Tuesday, no, it was Monday. Monday, we had another birthday outing with another niece. She turned 5. I think I mentioned that in last week's podcast. We'd had her birthday party. So we took her out, my husband and I, for her birthday date, if you will, or birthday outing. And she wanted to go mini golfing, so we took her to one of our local hamburger stands that also has a mini golf course attached to it. It's right on the lake. It was so hot that day. Monday was so hot. It was about 90 degrees. The humidity must have been like, I don't know, 85%. It was so hot. But fortunately, this particular location has a lot of trees, and the mini golf course is completely shaded. So it was manageable, and it was later. It was in the evening too, so the sun was starting to set. It was really quite pretty. We had a good time. She, of course, 5, so mini golfing with a 5-year-old. How can you go wrong, right? You're all winners when you're doing that. It's very low stress, low key. I think my husband did end up beating me by 1 stroke, but that's okay. We had a good time. She had a good time. And that was our little outing with her. We've got a little break now on the birthday outings until September. I have 2 nieces who have birthdays back to back in September, and then we'll have another good stretch until Christmas time. I have a Christmas Eve birthday, so this is our little quiet window of time. So But we do really enjoy that opportunity to take our nieces and nephews out. On Tuesday, I had a practice. I am in a show, or I'm going to be in a show at one of our local venues in September. It is the Best of Broadway. So we had our first full cast or ensemble practice on Tuesday, and again, it was so super hot. So we ended up practicing down in the basement of the venue pretty much for the whole time, which was good because I did end up having to go upstairs towards the end of it for a separate song that I'm in with just a handful of other people, and we had to be upstairs on the stage, and it was like, I don't know, half an hour or 40 minutes that we were working on that, and oh my goodness, by the time I left there, I was like dripping. And you could feel it as you went up the stairs. It's an old church, and as you go, the basement was beautiful, perfect. But as you went upstairs, you hit a point where it was like walking through a wall, and the heat just like, you walked into an oven. It was crazy, crazy. So, gonna be super fun though. I'm really, really looking forward to that. It's gonna be a fun show. So that's coming up in September. That's gonna be something that kind of occupies a lot of my, not a ton of time, but some of my time over the summer here as we're prepping for getting ready to go back to school, towards the end of August. But anyway, so that's something fun, something I'm looking forward to. On Thursday, my nieces, several of my nieces had a track meet. So my mother and I went over that. It was in the next town over, and we spent most of the meet, I guess. We left a little before the meet ended because it started at 2, and by 5-ish or so, I needed to get back home. But watched some of what they were doing. I think I've got at least one picture here that I can pop in. They're all kinds of different, they all did all kinds of things. There's relay, and some of them were doing triple jump and javelin and shot put and hurdles. One of my nieces does the hurdles. I don't think I was able to get any pictures of her. She's so good at those hurdles too. Oh my goodness, I can't even think of it. Like, I'm not a runner to begin with, and to try to run and jump over a hurdle, yeah, I'm sure I would land flat on my face. Would not be pretty. You don't want to see that, I'm sure. And 200 and 400, like there was almost always, that's the nice thing. There was a total of 5 of them in different events. And so yes, it was 3 hours that we spent there, but there was never a whole lot of time where we weren't just about waiting for some event to start for some kids. So it keeps it going. It's not quite so bad as other, if you were only there with one child or even 2 kids, and their events are all spread out, but you've got to be there for the whole time. That's really long, I'm sure. So, and that's where I was able to get a lot of the sock knitting done. I had my sock, and I was walking around with my brother was laughing at me. He's like, "Oh my gosh, Shawl, you've always got your knitting." I'm like, "Yes, I do. Yes, I do." But see, look, I got a sock just about done, right, while I was standing there. So, and other than that, we are getting ready to go camping this week. So yesterday we did grocery shopping. I started making food lists and packing lists and things to make sure that I've got everything that I need. And I'm gonna start this afternoon. Once I'm done with this, I've got some food prep that I want to do, and I've got to get all my projects pulled together and some games that we want to bring and get all that packing going. So I think it's gonna be a decent week. We might have a few showers that pop up here and there, but it doesn't sound like any steady rain is headed our direction. Last I heard, last I checked. I suppose that's subject to change, right? That's one of the sayings we have here in Maine is if you don't like the weather, wait a minute. So it does tend to circle around. So that is pretty much all that I have for today. Again, I thank you so very much for listening. You can find me on Ravelry or Instagram as Knittin' Michelle, KNITTINMICHELLE. Or you can shoot me an email at michellesfiberstudio@gmail.com. I will have links below for all of the different projects and things that I have talked about. And if you've enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like the video and or subscribe to the channel so you will always know when I have posted something new. I hope you have a wonderful week and happy knitting.